The story begins with the memory of a certain day when the gates appeared and monsters started to run rampant throughout the world. The only way to stop them was for those who had awakened magical abilities to fight back. Now we are shown a battlefield where the members of the Golden Seekers are fighting against the wave of monsters pouring out from the gate. During the battle, a straggler cried out for help, and the members urged each other to assist. Just before the monster could harm the civilians, someone kicked it away. The one who saved them asked if everyone was all right. Misato Kyoichiro then steps onto the stage, fighting against the wave of monsters and taking down dozens of monsters within seconds, single-handedly. People watching him are amazed. One of the members explains that his power is the power of time. He knows what will happen next. She calls his ability inhuman. When all of the monsters are finally defeated, Kyoichiro kills the last one. Feeling satisfied that he has protected the land and its peace, he declares that he will now seal the gate. However, as he begins the sealing, he is suddenly thrown inside the gate, and the seal closes from the outside. Kyoichiro is shocked. He has never seen a future like this. He asks if all of them were part of this plan and why they are doing this. At this moment, they reveal their true colors. They tell him that precisely because he had no idea what was really going on, he ended up betrayed. Kyoichiro is still confused, but they continue to explain. They reveal that he, Kyoichiro, is in fact a monster at level 100 with the time attribute. All they ever wanted was to earn money easily, but because of him, they always had to take on the most dangerous missions again and again. They tell him this will be the last time, as they are parting ways with him forever. Kyoichiro is stunned that his teammates would betray him for such petty reasons. All he ever wanted as the leader of the Golden Seekers was to make the world a safer place and to protect them all. He asks himself why things have led to this. But he cannot think for long, because monsters inside the gate begin to attack him. He counters the first, only to see a sea of monsters rushing toward him. In desperation, he looks into the future, searching for a way to escape, but in every outcome, he dies at the hands of the monsters. Realizing there is no future in which he survives, he throws himself into battle, determined to take down as many as possible. Despite his efforts, he cannot change his fate. With no way to escape his death, he still fights on, promising himself not to die a meaningless death. He vows to reincarnate, grow stronger, reach the absolute peak of power, and one day take revenge on those who betrayed him. Filled with rage and despair, he activates his final spell, a spell that carries his will and every emotion throughout the world. In the end, he wakes up in a new body. He rises from a bed and looks into a mirror, confirming that the first phase of his plan was a success. Looking around the hospital, he notices things that feel unfamiliar. He worries that he may have come too far into the future, and if that is true, he might not be able to exact revenge on his betrayers. He finds the ID of the boy whose body he now inhabits and learns that he has come 20 years into the future. However, what interests Kyoichiro most is the attribute the boy possessed. It is none other than the void attribute. He laughs, because in his previous life he was feared by his comrades for having what they thought was the strongest ability, but even he had limits. At one point, he reached the peak of his abilities, yet even with his foresight, he could never see the limits of the void attribute. He feels pity for the boy, because although void may be the strongest attribute, no one in his previous life ever possessed it, which meant those who did were thought useless since no one knew how to grow or improve it. This mystery seems to be true for the boy as well, as his skill is stuck at level 1. Kyoichiro knows the boy must have been mocked many times for failing to improve. With this, he makes a promise to the body's former owner. Rest assured, for he will make this name known throughout the world as the strongest adventurer to ever live. Because of his clairvoyance, Kyoichiro already knows how to grow the skills of the void attribute. He resolves to rise to absolute strength in this life and take revenge on those who betrayed him for such petty reasons. The first thing he has to do in order to get his revenge is level up. The void attribute, as the name suggests, is a magic that controls nihility. The essence of this ability is to freely project one's imagination into reality. Imagination itself is something everyone can do, but the difficult part is bringing it into reality. Since the boy's body is injured, Kyoichiro thinks that if he applies the image in his mind to his body, he can test it. He imagines every cell in the body being restored by magic. With this, the wounds slowly begin to heal. Because the spell is still at a basic level, the effects are slow, and his body has not fully healed internally. However, if he uses it multiple times, he will gradually level up. The ability to convert imagination into reality will also grow stronger, and the scope of his magic will expand. It will open doors to new possibilities, and one day he may reach the point where he can freely convert imagination into reality. As he is thinking this, the doctor arrives, surprised to see him awake. The doctor tells him not to move, since he had been hurt by a monster. This explains to Kyoichiro why the body was so badly injured in the first place. The doctor remarks that his waking up is like a miracle from the saintesses. Hearing the unfamiliar term, Kyoichiro asks what that means. The doctor is shocked that he seems to have forgotten basic knowledge. He explains that he is talking about the saintesses of the pentagram saints. But Kyoichiro replies that he does not know that term either. The doctor concludes that Kyoichiro must be confused after regaining consciousness. He tells him to rest and leaves the room. Left alone, Kyoichiro wonders about these new terms. Perhaps they are new adventurers who have become famous nowadays. He realizes that he must also understand the current situation of the world while leveling up. He turns on the television and sees a documentary about the SSS-class disaster. Watching it, he is stunned. The culprit is reported to be none other than Misato Kyoichiro himself. He is shocked, asking why he would be named the culprit. According to the documentary, Misato Kyoichiro had known about the arrival of the disaster but did not tell anyone, supposedly planning to take advantage of the chaos to rule the world. The documentary continues. His plans were stopped by the remaining members, who later became a symbol of hope for everyone, known as the Pentagram Saints. They defeated Misato Kyoichiro after a fierce battle, sealed off the gate, and claimed great fame for their feat. Even now, the members of the Pentagram Saints influence and lead large regions of the world. This revelation shakes Kyoichiro to his core. He laughs bitterly, realizing they not only betrayed him, but also dragged his dignity through the mud. First, they sacrificed him, and then they shamelessly claimed all the rewards, becoming celebrated heroes. Rage fills him. He swears he will never forgive them. He vows again that he will drag them all into the depths of hell. But for now, he must remain cautious and avoid revealing his identity, since he is still weak. Looking at the academy that the boy had attended, Kyoichiro discovers that it is run by one of the very members who betrayed him. Waking up in a perfect body with the void attribute, and with a target already in sight, he considers himself lucky. However, Iwako, the target, is cautious and will not show any weaknesses. The difference in their levels is also immense. He cannot defeat him yet. So, he decides to focus on leveling up first before going after him. After some weeks, Kyoichiro in his new body has made a complete recovery. The doctor is astonished at how quickly he has healed and tries to praise the saintesses, but Kyoichiro interrupts, telling him that was not the case. It was his own power. He thanks the doctor for taking care of him. Finally leaving the hospital, with his basic preparations complete and his level increased significantly, Kyoichiro plans to enter a dungeon for a warm-up. The doctor told him that everyone related to Kyosuke had died in the accident. Kyoichiro feels bad for the boy, but this also means he now has complete freedom to do whatever he wants. He then goes near a gate. Hiding his face, he tries to enter but is stopped by the guard, who tells him that the minimum level required is 30 and that he needs to have a party. The guard explains that going alone in the dungeon is too dangerous. Kyoichiro replies that this may be the case for others, but he is a student of a top university, and as long as he fills out the consent form, he should be allowed in. He had already researched these things while he was hospitalized. Some bystanders tease him, saying the guard is only advising him for his own good and that he should know his place as a greenhorn. Before the guard can take further action, Kyoichiro signs the form and moves forward. He thanks the guard for worrying about him. As he enters, the guard requests 3 others nearby to follow him to make sure he does not die. One of them almost rejects the idea, but another pulls him along, saying this might be their chance. They can get rich inside, and whatever happens in a dungeon stays in the dungeon. With that, they rush in, mocking that the kid still needs 100 years of training. Inside the dungeon, which looks like a cave, the party of 3 arrive with the plan to loot everything while eliminating the newbie kid, as this is how they always survive. They keep running for 10 minutes, but find nothing in the path until they finally catch up to him. Meanwhile, Kyoichiro is already facing a horde of monsters. Using his void attribute, he summons various types of magical spells of different natures, destroying every foe in his path. As the smoke clears, the three are shocked at how quickly he wiped out the monsters. But their greed soon takes over when they spot a rare drop that could sell for a handsome amount of money. Seeing that Kyoichiro has not noticed them, they plan to assassinate him and take the loot. They jump around the cave and launch magical spells at him. Kyoichiro, angered by their actions, mocks them and easily dodges their spells without breaking a sweat. He thinks to himself that no matter the time or era, there are always disgusting people who try to take what belongs to someone else. Two of the members are shocked at how effortlessly he avoided their attacks, but the third charges in with a fire attack, claiming Kyoichiro was just lucky. Before he can land the blow, Kyoichiro counters with an amplified fist directly to the gut, knocking him down. At their betrayal, Kyoichiro declares that he will show no mercy. He calls them the worst type of people, those who always betray and kill others for their own gain. For the sake of his ideals and his revenge, he vows to destroy them. Inside the dungeon, Yoichi Tsudai, who is the subordinate of Awako, arrives after hearing the news of a student from their institute entering the dungeon alone. However, the scene before him is completely different from what he expected. He questions why 3 novice-level adventurers are lying defeated on the ground, and how in the world this even happened in the first place. Now, back at the house, Kyoichiro reviews his gains. He was able to level up inside the D-rank dungeon and judge the level of power he currently has at hand. During this, he also secured a new spell that obscures information. With this, he can fake his level and stay hidden without blowing his cover. The next day will be his first day at the academy, so he lies down to rest. Just as he gets into bed, he reads some messages that reveal direct bullying aimed at the former owner of his body. The following day, Kyoichiro, posing as Kayasuke, goes to the academy. A girl calls out to him and asks if he is feeling better. She is his classmate, who had been looking after him, and she tells him how worried she was. Seeing that Kayasuke had people who genuinely cared for him makes Kyoichiro feel somewhat happy. But this moment is ruined when others mock Kayasuke for being non-attribute and returning after barely escaping death. They demand payment in return for protecting him, and they press him for money. Realizing their behavior, Kyoichiro understands that the text messages from the previous night were also from these guys. Before he can act, Asahi Karen steps forward, trying to stop them by saying he just returned from the hospital. However, her hands tremble in fear. Seeing this, Kyoichiro steps in and tells Asahi that he will handle it on his own. The bullies mock him for acting tough and threaten to remind him how useless he is. Instead of backing down, Kyoichiro mocks them in return, declaring that he will remind them of their place. Kyoichiro remembers his promise to make this boy's name famous worldwide, and with that, he prepares for battle. This enrages the bullies, and one of them readies a fire spell. Asahi is shocked, realizing they are using magic outside of a restricted area. The bully launches the attack at Kayasuke, but Kyoichiro counters with the very same magic, shocking the bullies. Kyoichiro mocks them, asking if this is all they can do. Humiliated, the bully calls over his lackeys. They both use different elements to try to overpower Kyoichiro, but again, he uses the same attributes to dominate their attacks. Terrified, they begin to wonder how many elements he can use. Kyoichiro then says that it's his turn. He declares that at the very least, he will keep them alive. He lights up an explosion, forcing them to run away. Before they can call for help, Kyoichiro grows furious and asks them if Kayasuke had not also asked for their help once, and what their response to him was. He says there is no need for an answer, because disgusting people like them always act the same way. And because of that, he declares, nothing will stop his fist from landing. With this, Kyoichiro delivers a devastating punch to the bully, knocking him out. Asahi Karen is shocked at what she sees. The lackeys quickly pick up their leader and flee, while Kyoichiro declares that from now on, no one will be able to look down on Kayasuke. Together, they will walk the path toward becoming the strongest. Outside of the school, the lackeys carry their boss away, apologizing along the way. They are angry at how he changed after being discharged from the hospital. At the same time, Kyoichiro thinks that they were not as big of a deal as he had expected. Now, in the school hallways, as he is heading to his class, others seem to take notice of his presence. This makes him think that perhaps he is standing out more than necessary. Just as he is almost at his classroom, someone approaches him and asks if he is Kyosuke. Gaining his attention, the person asks if he has time to talk. But Kyoichiro wonders who this person is. He believes this guy is just an upperclassman looking to cause trouble. He thinks to get him off his back by saying his class is about to start. Hearing this, the person says he forgot to introduce himself. He follows up by saying he is Yoichi Tsudai, leader of the Biting Cats. But the important part that catches Kyoichiro's attention is when Yoichi says the group was formed by Iwako himself. After this, Yoichi asks again if he has time to spare. Hearing about someone related to Iwako, Kyoichiro is tempted and agrees, saying it cannot be helped. In an empty classroom, Yoichi bluntly asks if Kyosuke is responsible for the death of adventurers in the dungeon last night. However, Kyoichiro straightforwardly denies any knowledge of the matter. He wonders how Yoichi could suspect him, since he had cleaned up his traces so well. Yoichi explains that the information he gathered was that a student from their school entered a dungeon alone. When he went to investigate, all he found were the defeated, well-known novice adventurers. He also adds that Kyosuke had shown multiple elements in the morning. From Yoichi's tone, Kyoichiro realizes that he does not actually know anything and is just trying to dig up information. Yoichi presses him to speak, but Kyoichiro plays it safe, saying he was attacked earlier that morning and has no idea what happened. To reinforce this, he takes out his adventurer card and shows that he is only level 1. Confirming that his level is indeed 1 and his attribute is void, Yoichi grows angry, realizing his time was wasted on a nobody. He warns him not to act suspicious in the future, as it would be a pain to clean things up again, and then leaves. As they part ways, Kyoichiro thinks he may be able to use Yoichi to his advantage, as a way to reach Iwako without raising suspicion. Thinking of ways to manipulate him, he begins to form an idea for a specific magic spell. Now we find Yoichi in Iwako's office, reporting on the events of the dungeon. Hearing this, Iwako says it is not like Yoichi to make mistakes, and warns him to choose people more carefully. Yoichi apologizes, promises to handle the situation, and tries to calm him down. Iwako then warns him that if word gets out that Yoichi was involved in the deaths of novice adventurers, it will bring criticism upon him as well. He grabs Yoichi's face and threatens that if things go wrong, Yoichi could be expelled in an instant. Yoichi promises to set things right. Inwardly, however, he grows angry, thinking that if he had known things would play out like this, he would have taken more money from those adventurers. Iwako then asks, according to Yoichi, a third-year student entered the dungeon, but there is no student in that class who did so. This would mean the cause of the novices' deaths was probably a monster inside the dungeon during their hunt, rather than a student. Iwako concludes that this is a more believable explanation than assuming a student killed them. He adds that it must be this way, unless something truly out of the ordinary happened. Thinking about this, Yoichi wonders if the void element could be that out-of-the-ordinary factor, so he reports that there might be a possibility of a unique attribute being involved. Considering it, Iwako admits that there is indeed a chance. Getting this clue excites Yoichi, and he quickly asks Iwako to leave everything to him, claiming that he will resolve the problem at hand swiftly. In a cave dungeon, many students seem to be practicing their magic while defeating monsters. Suddenly, one of the monsters breaks through, and the students become frightened. However, before anyone can be harmed, the monster is defeated by a golden light attack, which came from none other than Yoichi, who was in charge of today's exercise. He tells the students not to break formation. Finding his abilities formidable, many admire his power, noting that he was personally chosen by the principal. Some even wonder how they could join the same team as him. After dealing with the monsters, Yoichi leaves the rest to the students and walks away for his own business. He takes out an ornament, which is a device used to locate people. He tells it to find the location of Kyosuke. As soon as he says this, the chain begins to glow and points in the direction where Kyosuke is at that moment. Looking at the directions he received, Yoichi finds the result to be exactly as he expected. The chain shows Kyosuke is far away from the other students. Yoichi does not care what Kyosuke is doing alone, but he sees this as the perfect opportunity. He can eliminate the threat quietly and blame it all on monsters, because what happens in a dungeon stays in a dungeon. The reason he is after Kayasuk stems from a chain of events, starting with the death of the hunter-killer he had been using. Trouble has followed ever since Kayasuk was discharged from the hospital. The things the bullies told him are also troubling, as they claim the non-attribute kid attacked them using the same magic types they used. And, even more shocking, that he created flames unlike anything they had ever seen before. Yoichi could not make sense of their story and left. The bullies thought they were free, but Yoichi ordered others to re-educate them properly. He has no use for incompetent people who are overpowered by a so-called weakling. Two bullies tried to stop it, but in the chaos, the one who had taken a direct hit from Kyoichiro shouted in fear that Kayasuk was no longer human. His words carried immense terror. To deal with Kayasuk, Yoichi had arranged a special class to use the situation to his advantage. But during that time, Kayasuk used illusions and escaped. Yoichi suspects he must have used magical tools, which is the only explanation he can come up with. He also believes Kayasuk may have used similar tricks to get rid of the hunter-killer he had relied on. On his way, Yoichi found many defeated monsters on the ground. Looking at them, he wondered how a supposed weakling could have done this. The monsters had clearly been defeated in a single strike of fire magic. This aligned with what the bullies had told him earlier. Still, this scale of power did not impress him. After all, even Iwako, who had dropped out of the pentagram, could do such things easily. Yoichi is currently following Kayasuk because he has no other option. However, he plans to surpass Iwako sooner or later and take his place to finally rule over the world. Until then, he must never allow anyone to know his connection to the hunter-killer. And as for Kayasuk, he is an unknown variable that could disrupt his plans. To prevent this, Yoichi is determined to make sure Kayasuk reaches the afterlife sooner rather than later. Finally, after tracking him, Yoichi arrives at his destination. He believes his target must be on the other side. Curious about what Kayasuk is doing there, he peeks around the wall to check the situation. But to his shock, he finds Kayasuk sitting on top of a mountain of defeated monsters, calmly telling him that he has been waiting and that Yoichi is far too late. This catches Yoichi off guard, as he had hidden his presence the entire time. He wonders how Kayasuk was able to notice him. Just as these thoughts cross his mind, Kyoichiro speaks the very same words he is thinking. This gives Yoichi another shock, realizing his mind has been read. Yoichi steps out from the corner and demands to know who he really is. Instead of replying, Kayasuk mocks him, saying he thought anyone chosen by Iwako would be extraordinary, but judging from what he has seen so far, Yoichi is clearly flawed and ordinary. He adds that the only thing Yoichi has in common with Iwako is their cowardly habit of using novice killers for money extortion, a trait both of them share. Yoichi tries to regain control of the conversation, but Kyoichiro interrupts, telling him that he may enjoy tormenting others, but he has never known what it feels like to be the one hunted. Kyoichiro says he should consider himself lucky, because he is about to learn that feeling now. In his mind, Kyoichiro already begins planning to make a puppet he can use in the future. Now in the dungeon, Yoichi declares Kayasuk to be far too dangerous to be left unchecked, and for the sake of his goals, he needs to get rid of him at any cost. Saying this, he attacks him over and over, but still cannot land a single hit. This makes Kyoichiro mock him, asking if this is all the strength he has. He throws a fireball at Yoichi, who deflects it and tries to taunt Kayasuk. But that attack was only a feint, as Kayasuk follows it up with a series of magical strikes ranging from lightning to earth magic. Seeing this convinces Yoichi that Kayasuk possesses multiple elements. Enraged, he demands to know what is going on with his attribute, which is supposed to be void. Before he can even finish his sentence, he is hit again with another barrage of attacks. This infuriates Yoichi as more and more problems keep rising for him and his plans. Hearing this, Kyoichiro becomes intrigued and asks what plan he has. In the middle of battle, Yoichi begins to reveal his ambition, how he is going to surpass Iwako, take his place, and become the next pentagram saint. Kayasuk asks why Yoichi is so fixated on Iwako when there are other saints as well. At this question, Yoichi explains that his target is Iwako simply because Iwako is a dropout of the pentagram saints. He adds that if he can take that position for himself, he will be able to rule over the world. To him, it makes sense to target someone weak. These responses disgust Kayasuke. He says that at first, he thought Yoichi might have had some interesting reason for his ambitions, but hearing his shallow words made him think otherwise. Insulted, Yoichi becomes furious and rushes toward Kayasuke with intent to kill him. While attacking continuously, he shouts that there is nothing wrong with wanting power. He yells that there is nothing wrong in desiring power, money. The kind of power he seeks is the type where he can trample over others and no one can oppose him. He declares that if he becomes a saint and joins the pentagram, he can do whatever he wants and even gain hold of a saintess's weakness. Hearing these twisted ideas, Kyoichiro replies coldly that Yoichi's words are not even worth listening to. He decides to end the fight, launching Yoichi back with a single powerful strike that shatters his sword. Kyoichiro thanks him, because while Yoichi wasted time talking, he was able to gather enough energy to prepare the spell he truly wanted to use. Kayasuke approaches Yoichi slowly, terrifying him. Soon after, Yoichi is struck by Kyoichiro's absolute hypnosis magic. The spell forces Yoichi to fall unconscious. Observing the effect, Kyoichiro notes that the magic requires time to break the target's spirit, but once complete, it is extremely effective. He orders Yoichi to stand up, and in response, Yoichi obeys, rising to his feet. Satisfied, Kyoichiro instructs him to finish the class mission he was assigned to. Yoichi responds like a puppet. To refine the spell, Kyoichiro then orders him to speak in his normal tone. Instantly, Yoichi's manner of speech and movement return to normal, and he rushes back to the group. The results are better than Kyoichiro expected, making him pleased with the outcome. Afterward, Kyoichiro also returns to the group, where Karen was looking for him. She asks if he is all right. He tells her that he was just discussing something with a senior, nothing more. Surprised at such an unusual pairing, she asks what they were talking about. Kyoichiro spins the topic, saying that they were discussing how to achieve one's dreams, and he received good advice that will help his dreams come true. Seeing him so happy, she wishes for his dreams to come true as well. Soon, the class ends and everyone begins leaving the area. Kyoichiro is content. He has made good progress and gained himself a useful pawn, one that even Iwako will never suspect so easily. In Iwako's office, he asks Yoichi if there has been any progress on what he mentioned last time. To his surprise, Yoichi reports that there is progress and that the student possessing a unique attribute was involved in the whole mess. He further reports in detail that the student is none other than Ase Kayasuke, a first-year student who has the void element. He adds that the student is now captured by him, and after interrogation, he learned that Kayasuke was able to defeat the novice hunters because he possessed multi-attribute magic. Hearing the words multi-attribute magic immediately gets Iwako's attention. When he asks for more details, Yoichi smiles inwardly, knowing the fish has taken the bait. Yoichi tells Iwako that the specifics are still unknown, but if given some time, he can handle it and extract more information. He then throws another bait by suggesting that since it has been a while, why doesn't Iwako try his hand on him personally? Thinking about it, Iwako admits it has been some time since he last interrogated anyone, and the thought gives him something to look forward to. He plans to repay Kayasuke for all the trouble he has caused. Iwako is about to join Yoichi, but after receiving a call, he asks Yoichi to go ahead and promises to follow up later. Iwako answers the call, and on the other end, a woman thanks him for selecting them for the bid. However, Iwako, with a straight face, tells her to drop the act. The caller is none other than Lei Ruashi, a former member of the Golden Seekers who betrayed Kyoichiro over 2 decades ago. She teases Iwako, asking why he is acting so distant when they are partners, both being paid by the government. Iwako tells her to cut the call, saying he has urgent matters to deal with. Hearing this, Lei mocks him, asking what kind of urgency he could possibly have when he always fills his pockets while running a school. Iwako considers arguing, but drops it, instead telling her that he has an investigation on a student who possesses the void element. Hearing this, she laughs and asks what a loser with such an attribute could even do. Iwako agrees to some extent, but points out that a unique attribute always brings potential variables. Lei then asks if he is referring to something like the time attribute Kyoichiro once possessed. The mention of this name angers Iwako, and he tells Lei not to ever bring him up again, as he hates it. Lei seems to enjoy his frustration. Still, she agrees with him, saying that when Kyoichiro awakened, the balance of power shifted entirely. She then tells him that since he is busy, she will contact him later. Iwako, furious, slams the phone down, cursing the sly nature of Lei Ruashi. Hearing Kyoichiro's name has ruined his mood, and he decides to take out his anger on the captive student. That evening, Iwako goes to his usual place. Finally, he slams open the door, announcing his arrival angrily. But to his shock, there is no one inside. Suddenly, Yoichi attacks from behind, but Iwako blocks it with ease. With a smirk, Iwako comments that it seems he has been underestimated. He tells Yoichi that he may have gotten overconfident after receiving praise, but he is far from capable of defeating him with such petty tricks. Saying this, Iwako summons golden chains that wrap around Yoichi, restraining him completely. He kicks him and begins beating him, saying that Yoichi has made the wrong choice, and that his foolish desires will now be the reason for his death. Just as he goes in for the kill, a voice echoes from behind, saying that he hasn't changed, he is still a big idiot. Chills run down Iwako's spine as he looks around and demands to know who is there. Kyosuke steps forward, adding that Iwako has always groveled before the strong and exploited the weak. He is still the same greedy man, even after all these years. Iwako, enraged, asks how a mere student dares to speak to him like this. Kyosuke repeats the very words Iwako had said earlier, about ruining oneself with foolish desires, and throws them back at him, saying they perfectly describe Iwako himself. Fuming, Iwako threatens the student before him, saying he will expel him immediately and demands to know his ID. But Kyoichiro smirks and says that he has finally made it this far in the game, so he intends to take his time and have a proper talk, just between the two of them. In front of the warehouse, Kyoichiro mocks Iwako, which makes him furious. Iwako angrily declares that he will show him the difference in their strength. Using advanced earth magic, he summons a giant hand made of stone, fully confident that a mere student cannot possibly dodge his attack. He launches it with the intent to kill. The attack crashes down and lands on its target successfully. Overconfident, Iwako laughs, claiming this is his perfect victory, saying this is what happens to people who dare to defy him. Looking ahead, and seeing that the warehouse has also been destroyed, he wonders if he might have used more strength than he should have. Thinking about it, he tells himself he doesn't even know who that student was. Wiping sweat from his forehead as he walks toward the area, he suddenly stops. He cannot believe what is in front of his eyes. The student he attacked is standing there completely unscathed. Kyoichiro taunts him, saying he only wanted to have a little chat. Iwako panics, because never before has any student survived advanced magic without a scratch. He yells, demanding to know who he is and what his name is. At this, Kyoichiro starts laughing and replies, asking why he is even asking such a question. Surely, he should already know who he is. Confused, Iwako yells that he doesn't know and insists that a freak like him should stop messing around and answer him properly. At this, Kyoichiro places his hand on the back of his neck and says how hurt he feels by that response. Then, in his own chilling tone, he follows with, "Did you really forget about me?" This pattern of speech terrifies Iwako to his very core because he knows exactly who used to talk like that. Just the thought makes sweat drip down his face. The fear overwhelms him so much that he loses his rationality for a moment. Thinking back, he remembers they had thrown him into the gate. Enraged, Iwako convinces himself that this student must be playing mind games with him. He yells that the man he is talking about, the one known as Misato Kyoichiro, is already dead, and everyone knows it. Shouting this, he launches more spells at Kyoichiro. But looking at his pitiful behavior, Kyoichiro only sighs, asking how long Iwako has been living by believing only what is convenient for him, while ignoring what is not. Iwako threatens him not to come closer, warning that if he does, he will unleash his magic. He instantly understands that Iwako, in the end, had been deceived by sweet words from those around him, and that was the very reason he betrayed him 2 decades ago. Not wanting to accept any of this, Iwako launches another attack. But this time, his spell is destroyed by Kyoichiro, using the exact same magic he had once wielded in his last mission as Misato Kyoichiro to defeat the monster of the outbreak. Overcome by fear, Iwako falls to the ground, shaking, and stammers that he was sure they had trapped him inside the dungeon that day. In response, Kyosuke tells him that yes, he was trapped, thrown into the depths of despair and agony. Iwako, trembling, finally admits that he is the real Misato Kyoichiro. To this, Kyoichiro coldly replies that it took him long enough to realize it. Still unable to believe what he heard, Iwako stands again, claiming that if what the kid said is really true, then it would mean Misato died and returned from the dead. He says he is not such a fool as to accept this level of nonsense. Preparing an attack, he declares that a ghost should remain silent. With that, Iwako launches multiple wind attribute attacks followed by earth attribute magic, but to no avail, as all of his attacks are dodged. Growing tense, he tries to find a way to gain the upper hand in this situation. Everyone used to mock him as just a support character, but that never meant he was weak. To turn the tides, he begins preparing another attack to finish things once and for all. He tells Kyoichiro that he has been working for over 2 decades to perfect this one. Iwako wields dual magic at the same time, unleashing a massive cyclone filled with rocks toward Kyoichiro. He claims this is the strongest attack he has ever used. When his attack is not immediately countered, he starts laughing, believing he has finally achieved what no one else could, killing the great Misato Kyoichiro with his own hands. He mumbles that if Kyoichiro thought he was still the same weakling as before, then he was dead wrong, because over the years he has grown stronger. No matter how powerful Kyoichiro's time ability once was, it is now all in the past. Iwako boasts that 20 long years have passed, long enough for everything to change. The coward he once was no longer exists, and he keeps shouting that Kyoichiro should never have underestimated him. Arrogant and filled with pride, he tells himself he has grown stronger over 2 decades, and now he will boast about this achievement. He believes that none of the pentagram saints will ever mock him again. He even convinces himself that he is now the strongest among them all. But his fantasy is interrupted by Kyoichiro's calm voice asking if he is done talking. Startled, Iwako turns and is horrified to see Kyoichiro standing there, completely unharmed. Kyoichiro commends him, saying he is impressed that Iwako can use offensive magic stronger than normal, adding that it should be expected from a so-called hero of the era. Then Kyoichiro declares that he will take his revenge without holding back any longer. Seeing the intensity of the magic radiating from him, Iwako instinctively realizes he is facing a monster he cannot handle. But having come this far in life, he refuses to turn back. Desperately, Iwako launches another earth element attack, which seems to land, but Kyoichiro actually stops it in its tracks with his own power. Kyoichiro tells him that if he truly thinks he can win with such weak attacks, then he is living in a dream. Terrified, Iwako tries to halt Kyoichiro's advance, but all his efforts are in vain. Every attack is countered by Kyoichiro, who uses the same elements, but with superior technique, easily suppressing Iwako's spells. Unable to stop him, Iwako is blasted away. Now, Kyoichiro stands directly before him, one of the very targets of his revenge, his fist blazing with power and ready to strike. Iwako drops to his knees and begins begging for forgiveness, not only for what he has done now, but also for what he did 2 decades ago. Iwako laughs nervously to himself, believing that Kyoichiro is still a soft-hearted man who will forgive others. He convinces himself that if he begs like this, he will survive. But unexpectedly, his plea is rejected. With a furious tone, Kyoichiro declares that this is exactly the reason he was trapped in the dungeon 2 decades ago. He adds that he is no fool to let such betrayal happen again. With everything hopeless, Iwako tries to run away, shouting that they were once brothers. But Kyoichiro roars back that he has no right to say that anymore, not after making him into a revenge-seeking demon. With that, Kyoichiro lands a devastating blow straight to Iwako's face, following it with a series of punches that nearly knock him unconscious. Before fading, Iwako's final thought is that he should never have messed with him. Finally, Kyoichiro delivers one last strike, knocking Iwako out. He does not kill him, because he still has uses for him and answers he wants from him. For now, he decides he can wait until Iwako wakes up. After a while, Iwako wakes up. Just the sight of Kyoichiro terrifies him so much that he crawls back, begging not to be killed. To this, Kyoichiro replies that he will not let him off so easily by killing him. Instead, he says he has some questions. He takes out Iwako's phone and asks about the last call he made to Lei. Looking through the history, he questions Iwako about what they were discussing. Awako obediently answers that Lei is coming to Japan in 3 days and that he believed she wanted to discuss some matters with him. Hearing this, Kyoichiro decides what he must do next. He gives Awako his phone back and tells him to treat her normally. He also warns him not to tell anyone about his true identity. He adds that when Awako was knocked out, he placed a spell on his heart that will activate if he reveals who Kyoichiro is. The spell, he says, will explode and kill Awako instantly. This thought terrifies Awako to his very core. As Kyoichiro walks away, he thinks to himself that he never actually placed such a spell. But knowing Awako's personality, he is sure that this bluff will work perfectly. He could have used absolute hypnosis on him, but chose not to, as he wants Awako to live in despair while still fully aware of himself. 3 days later, Lei is seen on an airplane coming to Japan. One of her guards informs her that they are almost there. Just as the attendant is about to make an announcement, the flight is interrupted. Terrorists attempt to hijack the plane. They pull out guns and order everyone to the floor. As they terrorize the passengers, Lei stands up and charges directly at them. She takes down the hijackers swiftly, before anyone can even process the situation. The people recognize her as a member of the Pentagram Saints. At the airport, the airline officials thank her for saving the passengers. Lei modestly replies that she was just lucky to be on the same plane, and thanks to that, the airline's reputation was spared from being tarnished. She also points out that the guns the terrorists used seemed to be made of a special material, which is why they were not detected by the scanners. She explains that many gangs are now using weapons made from dungeon materials. She tells the airline official that she would like to gear up her staff for security, placing her hand on his shoulder and indirectly threatening him to provide the gear she wants. Not wanting complications, the official agrees and promises to see it through. Lei walks away, giving him a thumbs up. As she leaves the airport, she makes a call, instructing someone to release the hijackers. Her guard comments that things went well. Lei smirks and replies that it was entertaining, since hiring the hijackers helped her secure the deal she wanted. Walking out, she is greeted by a crowd of fans. The incident, she realizes, was also useful for her publicity. From there, Lei heads straight to the place where her true business lies, the office of Awako. She enters, takes a seat, and asks him about the investigation he was conducting on the void attribute and how it has progressed. When Lei presses him about his progress, Iwako tells her it was nothing more than a dud, a false alarm. Just as she predicted, he appears to be a worthless failure. Hearing this, Lei expresses disappointment, saying she had hoped for something fun. She remarks that even if a unique attribute exists, it does not necessarily mean it will be special in the end. Throughout the conversation, Iwako stays intensely focused on not spilling the truth, as he is terrified the spell on his chest will activate and kill him. To avoid this, he responds calmly and carefully. Closing the conversation about the void attribute, Lei shifts to the main reason she came to Japan in the first place. It is related to a drug they have been developing for a long time. Now, the time has come to choose the next test subject. She tells Iwako he has made good use of the system so far. She continues discussing how to form a list of students for experimentation. Meanwhile, Kyoichiro, listening through his earpods, grows angry about what he hears. He quietly declares that Lei will be the next target of his revenge. Now at his home, Kyoichiro listens to the news and reviews the recent events caused by Lei Ruashi since her arrival in the country. She is also one of the people who betrayed him over 2 decades ago. Back then, she was already making things from dungeon materials, and from the looks of it, she has earned a fortune selling such items. But in the end, from her conversation with Iwako, it is clear she has come here to cause harm and continue doing evil things. On the surface, she plays the role of a hero, but behind the scenes, she is a sly fox who exploits others. With that kind of nature, Kyoichiro knows he cannot forgive her or let her off the hook so easily. However, he wonders how he should deal with her this time. Considering how tight the security already was when he entered the academy, he knows this won't be easy, and he needs to prepare carefully. While he is thinking, Asahi approaches him, asking what he is reading. Asahi comments that Lei is amazing for how she fought against the hijackers and mentions the Great Snake of Changsha, which is very famous. Hearing this, Kyoichiro asks her more about it. Asahi explains that this is the name of the clan Lei created and that its members are all powerful. Thinking back, Kyoichiro realizes that the men in black suits he saw earlier must have been members of this clan. Asahi adds that many students hope to join her clan or the military in the future. She then asks what Kyoichiro's plans are. He is about to answer, but suddenly gets an idea. If he joins the clan, he could get closer to Lei and achieve his goal. He thanks Asahi for her help, since she unknowingly gave him the answer he needed. Excited, he rushes away, leaving Asahi behind, confused about what she just helped him with. At Awako's office, the phone suddenly rings, startling him. He picks it up and finds that Kyoichiro is on the other end. Kyoichiro calmly tells Awako that there is something he needs him to do. Nervously, Awako asks what it is. Kyoichiro then explains the plan and instructs him on what to say if Lei calls. Meanwhile, in a testing lab filled with scientists, a student is tied up. The boy is in agony while the scientists discuss their work. Suddenly, the doors open, and Lei enters. She asks the student how he is feeling. Begging for mercy, the student pleads with her to stop injecting him with the drug, insisting that he will die at this rate. Before he can finish, Lei stomps on him, kicking him aside. She adds that there is no need to be terrified, because if the experiment succeeds and he proves compatible with the medicine, he will become far stronger than ever before. After this, she orders the scientists to continue. Despite the boy's cries and begging, they inject him with the drug again. This time, he suffers greatly and eventually dies. The scientists continue making reports based on their observations. Looking at the disappointing results, Lei concludes there is no point in these experiments unless they find subjects with a high level of magical proficiency. A guard tells her they will need more test subjects soon. Lei agrees and says they will handle it the same way as always, by opening a recruitment drive for the clan, which will only appear as a recruitment on the surface. With this, she calls Awako while riding the elevator. She tells him she needs samples of students with strong magical talent. Remembering his instructions, Iwako responds exactly as Kyoichiro had told him to. He suggests a plan to disguise the process as a selection at the academy to identify talented students. Hearing such a clever idea, Lei praises Iwako, saying that sometimes he can come up with good plans. Afterward, she decides on the date and time for the selection. Meanwhile, Iwako thinks to himself that he has done exactly what Kyoichiro instructed. The next day, the head guard enters the classroom to make an announcement. The Great Snake of Changsha clan will be holding a recruitment event at the academy to find potential recruits. The students immediately begin discussing how this is their chance to secure their futures. For Kyoichiro, however, it means something else. His path to Lei has finally opened. The selection campaign began on the scheduled day for joining the clan. The guard explained the procedure that all participants would go through. Meanwhile, Kyoichiro began forming a plan on how he would use these tests to get close to Lei. In his previous encounter with Awako, he had tried to remain in the shadows. However, this time the situation was different. He needed to get the attention of Yang Sinyu, Lei's right hand. This time, he was going to display his power. As Kyoichiro was thinking, Asahi approached him and asked if he was also taking the exam. She told him that although she knew she did not truly belong there, she had her own reasons for joining the test. Hearing this made Kyoichiro curious about what her reasons might be. The first test was to measure magical power. The device would light up and display how much power one possessed. When the test began, the results of the students were disappointing. Then came Kyoichiro's turn. He showed his card, and the examiner, expecting nothing from the void element, looked unimpressed. However, unlike his expectations, the light emitted was the brightest he had ever seen. The result was outstanding, and Kyoichiro was given an S grade for his display. The second test was for magical skill. Kyoichiro first created a lump of earth. The examiner doubted his ability, but his doubts were instantly blown away when Kyoichiro summoned all magical attributes at once and controlled them flawlessly. He wondered how those who once called the void element useless would feel now. Asahi came to him afterward and told him how amazing he was, and he wished her good luck for her test. When Asahi's test began, she demonstrated light magic by reviving dead plants. Most others did not take notice of it, but Kyoichiro was impressed that she possessed light magic. The examiners overlooked her talent, but he thought it best if she remained unnoticed for her own safety. However, Yang Sinyu, Lei's right hand, showed interest in her potential as a test subject. After all the preliminary tests, The final stage began, one-on-one duels. Yang Xinyu announced that they would be fighting members of the clan. The students became tense, worried about facing elite members, but were reassured that the evaluation would not depend solely on victory or defeat, but on how they fought. Confident that none of the students could possibly win, the clan members prepared themselves. Kyoichiro's duel began, and his examiner remarked that while he had shown good performance earlier, it would not help him in real combat. He then planned to eliminate Kyoichiro in a single strike using earth magic. However, Kyoichiro used wind magic to repel the attack effortlessly. The examiner was shocked that such a powerful strike was countered so easily. Before he could recover, Kyoichiro vanished from his sight, only to reappear instantly behind him with a knife made of water magic. This decisive move ended the duel. Kyoichiro mocked the examiner slightly, saying he had learned a lot from him in this match. The duel ended in Kyosuke's victory. Yang Xinyu was astonished by the result, questioning who this student could be, as he had surpassed every expectation. Later that night, he reported to Lei that the exam was over. Hearing this, she asked if there were any useful subjects. Yang Xinyu replied that there was one student who had cleared all the tests overwhelmingly, but that he used the void attribute. At the mention of void, Lei's excitement grew. She recalled Awako's investigation into a student with that attribute. Smiling slyly, she states that this new student is going to be really fun.